Hey, we're going to talk in the next segment more about Matt Gaetz. Donald Trump had to be talked out of publicly defending Matt Gaetz. Now, it's not stopping Matt Gaetz from claiming he has Trump support. And we're going to get to that later in the show. But there's a very interesting report from CNN and Business Insider and a number of different media outlets that Donald Trump had to be talked out of publicly defending Republican Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz as reports surfaced almost daily, something new and very bad for Matt Gaetz, including questions about whether Matt Gaetz had a sexual relationship with a minor, whether he actually trafficked that minor across state lines, which would be very, very bad. And Maggie Haberman from the New York Times reported on CNN that Donald Trump wanted to come out in defense of Matt Gaetz, but presumably many of the people around Donald Trump were saying, don't say a word. These allegations are really serious. Haberman said, quote, his first impulse was he wanted to defend Gaetz. You know, he's one of our people. Several of his advisors told him it's a very bad idea. The nature of what Gaetz is being investigated for is so serious that this is not something that former President Trump should be out on a limb for. And then we've seen the silence from Trump world, and we now understand why. Now, again, Matt Gaetz is still saying, I have Trump support. I've heard from Trump and it's all going great. It's not clear whether that's true, but we're going to talk about that after the break. There are some within Donald Trump's circle who actually celebrated the controversy. Reportedly, there are some people around Trump who really don't like Matt Gaetz and were allegedly gleeful that Matt Gaetz was having this problem. Business Insider writes that another Trump confidant echoed the assessment. Telling Politico, the reason you haven't seen people in MAGA defending Gaetz is less about him being unpopular, which he is in a lot of circles, but more about the fact that he hasn't done a single thing to make people comfortable to defend him. And case in point, every time Gaetz publicly speaks about this scandal, it actually raises new questions. Gaetz seems to propose or introduce new potentially derogatory information about himself every single time that he does something publicly. He spoke over the weekend at a very strange event. I'll have clips after the break for you. It raises more questions about Gaetz, who seems to be now making himself a martyr for allegedly having paid a minor for sex. Very, very strange. When he did the Tucker Carlson interview, not last week, but the week before, he sort of strangely seemed to implicate Tucker and even raise new questions, denying that he ever paid for sex, which at the time was not even part of the publicly known investigation. Just, it gets worse every time after time after time. So for now, one of the really funny things is, in some way, doesn't this invalidate the QAnon conspiracy? Because QAnon is a conspiracy theory based on the idea that Donald Trump was sent to fight an imaginary child sex trafficking ring run by Democrats. If Trump was eager to defend Gaetz despite child sex trafficking claims, it doesn't really sound like the type of guy who would be fighting against child sex trafficking that QAnon believes him to be. Just a side note about yet another one of these conflicts between these various conspiracy theories. But despite Trump not publicly supporting Matt Gaetz is saying that he still has Donald Trump's support. So we're going to talk about that after the break. Make sure that you are following me on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at david.pakman. One of our longtime sponsors is Vincero Watches, and I would love for you to support these guys. And right now, for a very limited time during their spring upgrade sale, you will save up to 30% off all of their products. Vincero only creates watches that are exceptionally crafted with a sleek, modern look, and they're sustainably made, which I love. I just picked up Vincero's Chrono S model in gunmetal and walnut. I love the simple design, the high quality engraving on the face. With the contrast of the dark leather strap, Vincero really does create what I think are visually beautiful watches. It's springtime. It's time to upgrade your look, freshen up your style, and a great quality watch like this is the perfect way to do it. They also have sunglasses, wallets, and bracelets, which are excellent. And for a very limited time, Vincero's spring upgrade sale is giving you up to 30% off all of their products. Just go to vincerocollective.com/David. The link is right underneath this video.